Imagine stepping outside long after the sun has disappeared. The day is over. The heat has softened. The world feels quieter. But instead of your garden fading into darkness, something unexpected happens. A soft fragrance drifts through the air. White petals begin glowing under the moonlight. Flowers that looked ordinary during the day suddenly become the stars of the night. Every step reveals a new scent, a new bloom, a new reason to stay outside just a little longer. Most gardens are designed for daylight, but some of the most unforgettable gardens come alive after sunset. Tonight, we're exploring 7 incredible night-blooming fragrant perennials that can transform an ordinary outdoor space into something that feels almost dreamlike. These are the plants that release their richest perfume in the evening, reflect moonlight beautifully, and create an atmosphere that feels calm, mysterious, and impossible to rush through. Some are surprisingly easy to grow. Some are famous for fragrances that carry across an entire garden. And one of them may completely change the way you think about nighttime landscaping. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which flowers deserve a place in your own moonlight garden. And trust me, the final choices become more magical as we go. Let's begin. There's something people discover the first time they experience a truly fragrant evening garden. It doesn't feel like the same place they walk through during the day. Colors become softer. Details become quieter. Your attention shifts from bright visual impact to atmosphere. You notice movement, temperature, texture, and most of all, you notice scent. Many night-blooming plants evolve to attract evening pollinators, releasing stronger fragrance after sunset when moths and nighttime visitors become active. That means your garden experience changes naturally throughout the day. Morning gardens energize. Evening gardens invite you to stay. That's what makes moonlight gardens feel special. They aren't designed to overwhelm. They're designed to slow time. And the best part is that you don't need a huge property or a luxury landscape to create one. A few carefully chosen perennials can completely change the feeling of an outdoor space. As we move through this list, pay attention to more than appearance. Think about where you would actually experience these flowers. Outside your bedroom window, near a garden bench, along a pathway, beside a patio where conversations stretch longer because nobody wants to go inside. And while every plant on today's list earns its place, the last few become increasingly dramatic. So let's start with a perennial that quietly earns affection the longer you live with it. Number 7, evening primrose. If there's one flower that understands timing, it's this one. During the day, evening primrose can look simple, almost understated. Then sunset arrives, and suddenly the garden changes. Its blooms begin opening as daylight disappears, creating a slow transformation that feels surprisingly theatrical. You can walk past the same plant earlier in the afternoon and barely notice it, then return after dinner and find delicate flowers waiting for the night. That moment alone gives evening primrose a special kind of charm. It doesn't demand attention. It rewards attention. The blooms are usually soft shades of pale yellow, cream, or white, colors that naturally reflect moonlight instead of absorbing it. Under evening skies, they seem brighter than they actually are. And because moon gardens often rely on pale blooms for visual impact, evening primrose becomes an easy way to create glow without artificial lighting. But appearance is only half the experience. The fragrance is where things become memorable. Evening primrose releases a gentle, fresh scent that feels clean and calming rather than overpowering. Depending on the variety, people often describe the fragrance as lightly sweet with subtle citrus or floral notes. It doesn't rush toward you. It waits, which makes it especially enjoyable in smaller spaces. This isn't the kind of flower that announces itself from across the yard. Instead, it creates discovery. You notice it while walking, while sitting, while staying outside longer than planned. And that's exactly what a moonlight garden should do. Now let's talk practicality. Because one of the reasons evening primrose works so well is that it asks for very little. Most varieties thrive in full sun to partial shade. They appreciate well-draining soil, but tend to be adaptable once established. They're often more tolerant of difficult conditions than gardeners expect. That means they can work in cottage gardens, relaxed borders, naturalistic planting schemes, and spaces where you want beauty without constant maintenance. Water consistently during establishment, but avoid creating overly wet conditions. Once settled, many gardeners find evening primrose surprisingly independent. Bloom timing varies depending on climate and variety, but many provide extended flowering periods that carry interest through warm seasons. And because these flowers open in cycles, there's always a sense that something new is happening. Placement matters with this one. Don't hide it. Plant evening primrose where evening routines naturally happen. Near a pathway, beside outdoor seating, close to a porch, anywhere you're likely to pass after sunset. Its magic isn't meant to be admired from a distance. It's meant to be experienced gradually. And if you combine it with darker foliage or silver-toned plants nearby, the nighttime glow becomes even more noticeable. For people creating their first moonlight garden, evening primrose is often one of the easiest ways to begin. Simple, beautiful, unexpected. But if you think nighttime fragrance needs to stay subtle, the next perennial turns up the atmosphere and starts creating something much richer. Number 6. Tuberose. Some flowers decorate a garden. Others completely change the air. Tuberose belongs to the second category. This is the kind of flower people remember, even if they forget the name, even if they only experience it once. Tuberose has developed a reputation for one reason above everything else: its fragrance. Rich, creamy, deeply floral, and remarkably powerful. When evening temperatures settle and the air becomes still, tuberose begins to release a perfume that feels almost impossible to ignore. Many people describe it as luxurious. Others describe it as romantic. Some gardeners intentionally planted near entertaining spaces because conversations tend to pause when the scent becomes noticeable. It has presence. And unlike flowers that lose impact after sunset, tuberose becomes more compelling. Visually, tuberose brings elegance rather than abundance. Tall flower spikes rise upward carrying clusters of pale blooms that appear almost luminous in low light. That vertical shape gives structure to moon gardens. Instead of spreading outward, tuberose creates soft height and movement. When evening breezes pass through, the entire display feels alive. Its white blooms catch moonlight beautifully and naturally fit the classic moon garden palette. But the fragrance is still the main event. This isn't a background scent. This is the flower people associate with memory. One evening becomes many evenings. One season becomes tradition. That's the effect strong fragrance can create. Now, for growing conditions. Tuberose performs best with plenty of sunlight during the day. The more energy it stores, the stronger the bloom performance becomes. Choose a location with good drainage because overly wet conditions can reduce vigor. Warm environments tend to encourage stronger flowering, though local growing conditions will influence performance. Regular watering helps during active growth, but avoid constant saturation. Patience helps too. Tuberose rewards consistency more than constant interference. Once blooms arrive, the wait starts feeling worthwhile. Maintenance stays fairly manageable. Remove spent flowers to keep the display looking fresh and support continued performance. And because the flower spikes create vertical emphasis, grouping several together often creates a more immersive effect than scattering individual plants. Now think about placement. Where would fragrance matter most? Near a patio, beside outdoor dining, along the route from your door to your garden. Anywhere still evening air can carry scent naturally. One of the most effective moon garden techniques is creating fragrance zones. Not every area needs maximum intensity, but one dedicated space with tuberose can become unforgettable. Imagine sitting outside, the sky turning darker, conversations slowing, and then gradually noticing the scent becoming stronger. That's the kind of experience this flower creates. Tuberose teaches something important about garden design. Beauty isn't always visual. Sometimes the most memorable moments happen when you close your eyes. And we're only getting started. Because the next plant brings something completely different. A bloom that surprises people not because of how strong it smells, but because of when and how it transforms after dark. We've already stepped into the quieter side of gardening, the side that doesn't compete for attention in bright afternoon sunlight, the side that waits. And if the first two plants introduce the idea of a garden changing after sunset, the next three begin turning that idea into something far more immersive. Because this is where moon gardens stop feeling decorative and start feeling intentional. Let's continue. Number 5, moonflower. Some flowers bloom. Moonflower performs. There's a reason people become emotionally attached to this plant after seeing it at the right moment. You can spend the day looking at tightly wrapped buds and wondering what the excitement is about. Then evening arrives, and suddenly those tightly folded forms begin to loosen. Petals slowly unfold. Shapes expand. A flower that didn't exist a short time ago becomes the center of attention. Watching moonflowers open feels strangely calming. It reminds you that not every beautiful thing arrives all at once. Some experiences ask you to stay and reward patience. That's part of what makes moonflower such a natural fit for moonlight gardens. Its blooms are typically large, bright, and pale enough to seem illuminated under evening skies. Instead of disappearing into darkness, they appear to collect available light. Even modest moonlight can make them stand out. There's something almost theatrical about seeing large, white blooms suspended against darker foliage. But appearance is only part of the experience. Moonflower also carries fragrance. Soft, sweet, fresh. Its scent isn't usually as dense or dramatic as tuberose, but it creates a gentle atmosphere that feels clean and welcoming. People often notice it most while lingering nearby, which means moonflower excels in places designed for slowing down. This is not a walk past and move on plant. This is a sit with a drink and stay a while plant. From a growing perspective, moonflower appreciates sunlight during the day because nighttime bloom performance depends on energy gathered earlier. Choose a location with good drainage and room to climb or spread depending on how you design the space. Give it support if needed. Think vertically. One of the most effective moon garden techniques is drawing the eye upward after dark. Moonflower does that naturally. Bloom periods can become especially rewarding during warm conditions, and regular care supports stronger flowering over time. Water consistently, but avoid extremes. Healthy roots usually mean better nighttime displays. Placement is where this plant becomes exciting. Imagine walking through a gate covered with evening blooms. Imagine a trellis beside a seating area. Imagine stepping onto a patio and seeing pale flowers floating in the darkness. Moonflower creates entrances, transitions, moments, and when fragrance drifts through moving evening air, the whole space starts feeling intentional. This plant also teaches an important design principle. Not every flower needs to dominate. Some create mood. Moonflower belongs in that category. But if moonflower creates softness, the next perennial creates presence. Because this next choice doesn't wait quietly for attention. It arrives with confidence. Number 4, night phlox. If someone told you a flower could make people stop and ask where the scent is coming from, this might be the one. Night phlox has earned an almost legendary reputation among gardeners who care about fragrance. And the surprising part is that many people discover the scent before they notice the blooms. During daylight, it can appear pleasant but understated. Nothing dramatic. Nothing overly demanding. Then evening changes everything. As temperatures cool, the fragrance begins to expand. And suddenly, the air feels different. People often describe the scent in vivid ways. Honey, vanilla, spice, sweetness. Some even compare it to desserts or warm evening air, carrying something unexpectedly familiar. Descriptions vary, but the reaction tends to stay consistent. People lean closer, then stay longer. That's powerful garden design, because fragrance changes behavior. Instead of moving through space, people settle into it. Visually, night phlox produces clusters of small blooms that work beautifully in moon gardens because they create texture rather than isolated focal points. That texture matters at night. You're not viewing individual petals. You're experiencing overall atmosphere. Mass planting creates softness. Repeated clusters create rhythm. And when moonlight touches pale blooms, the effect becomes surprisingly elegant. Now, let's talk practicality. Night phlox generally performs best where it receives generous light during the day. Good airflow supports healthy growth. Drainage matters. Avoid conditions that remain overly saturated. This isn't usually a high-maintenance plant, but consistency creates better results than dramatic intervention. Water thoughtfully. Avoid extremes. Encourage steady growth, because the reward happens later. And when evening fragrance arrives, you'll understand why people make room for it. Placement becomes especially important. Do not place this where nobody experiences it. Night phlox belongs where people pause. Near seating. Along evening pathways. Outside windows. Near outdoor dining areas. Anywhere air movement can carry fragrance naturally. One interesting approach is using this plant as a transition layer. Start with subtle fragrance in one part of the garden. Increase intensity gradually. Create discovery. That way the garden feels like an experience instead of a display. And if your goal is creating a space that encourages evening routines, night phlox deserves serious consideration. But now we're approaching the point where moon gardens begin feeling unforgettable. Because the remaining plants don't just smell beautiful. They begin creating atmosphere at another level. Before we continue, I want to ask something. Imagine your perfect evening garden. You step outside. There's a soft breeze. You can choose only one fragrance. Would you choose something fresh and airy? Something rich and floral? Something sweet and comforting? Or something deep and dramatic that fills the entire space? Pause for a second and decide. And while you're thinking about it, notice something. Every garden tells a different story. Some people want calm. Some want abundance. Some want a place that feels almost cinematic. That's why there isn't one perfect moon garden. There's only the version that feels right to you. Keep your answer in mind, because the final 3 plants may completely change it. Let's continue. Number 3, jasmine. There are flowers people admire, and there are flowers people remember years later. Jasmine belongs in the second category. Even people who know very little about gardening often recognize jasmine the moment they encounter it. Not because they immediately see it, because they smell it. Its fragrance has become famous for a reason. Elegant, warm, sweet, layered. The kind of scent that feels richer as evening settles in. And unlike flowers that create short moments of impact, jasmine often creates atmosphere that stretches through entire evenings. You don't experience jasmine once. You keep noticing it. That's part of its appeal. Its flowers are usually delicate and refined rather than oversized or dramatic. Small pale blooms appear against deeper foliage and create contrast that works beautifully at night. Under moonlight, they seem cleaner, softer, almost luminous. This is one of those plants that doesn't need exaggerated color. Its strength comes from mood, from distance, from presence. People designing moon gardens often choose jasmine because it works on multiple levels. Visual softness, reliable fragrance, comfort. And because scent travels naturally in evening air, jasmine can influence more space than people expect. Now, for growing considerations. Jasmine generally appreciates bright conditions during active growth and benefits from thoughtful placement. Good drainage matters. Consistent care encourages stronger flowering. Avoid extremes whenever possible. Support healthy structure. Allow airflow. And remember something important. Fragrance gardens reward patience. Stronger performance often develops over time. Placement with jasmine changes everything. Close to a seating area. Near an entry. Around a pergola. Beside places where people naturally slow down. Because jasmine isn't meant to be observed quickly. It's meant to become part of the evening. Imagine stepping outside and catching fragrance before you even reach the garden. That's the effect. And while jasmine feels timeless, the final 2 plants become even more dramatic, because one of them transforms nighttime gardens in a way that feels almost unreal. We're getting close. We've reached the final stretch. By now, the garden we imagined at the beginning probably looks different. Maybe larger, maybe softer, maybe more intentional. You've already discovered flowers that open after sunset, flowers that fill the air with fragrance, and flowers that completely change character when daylight disappears. But the last two choices take everything we've built so far and push it further. Because these are the plants people talk about after guests leave. The ones that turn a pleasant garden into a destination. Let's continue. Number 2, Casablanca Lily. Some flowers don't need to compete. They arrive and immediately feel important. That's the presence Casablanca Lily brings into a garden. This is the kind of bloom that looks designed for moonlight. Large white petals, clean lines, strong structure, a glow that becomes more noticeable as the evening gets darker. During the day, it's beautiful. After sunset, it becomes dramatic. And once the fragrance begins to unfold, the entire atmosphere changes. Casablanca Lily is known for scent that feels rich and unmistakably floral, without becoming chaotic. It creates the feeling of entering a space that has intention behind it. Elegant, calm, luxurious. The fragrance tends to feel fuller in cooler evening air, which makes nighttime the perfect moment to experience it. Unlike flowers that ask you to get close before noticing them, this one often announces itself more confidently. You don't have to search for the experience. It comes to you. Visually, few flowers create this level of nighttime contrast. The large white blooms catch available light and stand apart from surrounding greenery. That makes Casablanca Lily incredibly effective as a visual anchor. Every moon garden benefits from moments where the eye naturally settles. This can become one of those moments. Instead of blending into the landscape, it gives the garden structure. A destination, a place to arrive. From a growing perspective, lilies reward preparation. Choose a position that receives good daylight while protecting conditions from becoming overly harsh. Drainage matters. Healthy roots support stronger blooms and better seasonal performance. Water consistently without allowing soil to stay constantly wet. Strong flowering often comes from balance rather than excess. And because blooms create such visual impact, spacing matters too. Give them room to feel intentional. Not crowded, not lost. Placement with this plant becomes part of the experience. Think about where people naturally stop. Near seating, near focal points, near transitions between spaces. Imagine walking down a path and seeing pale blooms floating at eye level in evening light. Imagine fragrance reaching you before you arrive. That's what makes this flower memorable. But there's another reason it earns this position. Casablanca Lily bridges two worlds. It delivers dramatic visual impact without sacrificing fragrance. That combination is rare. Still, there is one final perennial that completes the dream. The flower that doesn't simply decorate a moon garden. It defines it. Number 1, night blooming jasmine. If moonlight had a fragrance, this might be the closest thing. Night blooming jasmine isn't famous because of dramatic flowers. It's famous because of experience. People often expect a visual show. Then they discover something else. The magic happens in the air. As evening arrives, the fragrance begins. Slowly at first, then more fully. Then suddenly, the entire garden feels transformed. This is one of those plants that changes perception. You notice it before you see it. You remember it after you leave. You step outside planning to stay for 5 minutes. And stay for 40. That's its reputation. Night blooming jasmine creates atmosphere in a way very few plants can. Its flowers themselves are usually small and understated. But that simplicity becomes part of the charm, because all the attention shifts toward scent. The fragrance is often described as intensely floral, warm, soft, slightly sweet, and capable of carrying through evening air much farther than expected. Some people plant one and discover they can smell it from surprising distances. That reach changes how a garden feels. Instead of fragrance staying in one corner, it becomes part of the entire environment. This is where moon gardens stop becoming collections of plants and start becoming experiences. Visually, The pale blooms still contribute beautifully after dark. Small points of brightness appear among deeper foliage and create subtle contrast. Nothing feels forced. Everything feels atmospheric. That balance matters. Because nighttime beauty isn't about intensity. It's about invitation. From a practical standpoint, placement and conditions matter. Choose a location that receives strong daytime energy and offers space for airflow and growth. Avoid constantly wet conditions. Support healthy structure. Encourage balance. Like many fragrance-focused plants, consistency matters more than perfection. And once established, the reward becomes part of your evening routine. Now think about placement carefully. This one deserves intention. Near windows. Near seating. Near places where people spend time after sunset. You want the fragrance to reach people naturally. You want discovery. You want someone to ask, "What smells so good?" and then realize it's the garden. One of the most effective moon garden approaches is making this the emotional center. Build around it. Layer softer fragrances nearby. Create transitions. Let stronger scents appear gradually. Allow moments to unfold. That's how memorable gardens are designed. Not all at once, but one experience leading into another. And if your goal is creating a garden that truly feels alive after dark, night-blooming jasmine may be the flower that brings the entire vision together. Now imagine combining everything we explored tonight. You step outside. The sky has darkened. The air has cooled. The garden isn't trying to impress you immediately. It reveals itself slowly. Near the entrance, evening primrose begins reflecting the last traces of light. A little farther in, tuberose introduces deeper fragrance and creates the feeling that something special is ahead. Moonflowers rise above the space and soften the edges of the garden. Night phlox creates layers of scent that invite people to linger. Jasmine begins weaving atmosphere into the evening. Casablanca lilies create elegant focal points that glow in the distance. And somewhere nearby, night-blooming jasmine quietly transforms the air itself. Nothing competes. Everything supports the experience. That's the secret. Moon gardens work because they're designed differently. They aren't built to overwhelm. They're built to unfold. You don't need enormous space. You don't need complicated design. You don't need perfection. You need intention. A place to sit. A path to walk. A reason to stay outside a little longer. And suddenly, your garden becomes something people remember. Not because of how it looked, but because of how it felt. Before we finish, here's a quick reminder. Evening primrose brought quiet transformation. Tuberose filled the night with rich fragrance. Moonflower created movement and glow. Night phlox layered sweetness into the air. Jasmine delivered timeless evening atmosphere. Casablanca lily added dramatic beauty. And night-blooming jasmine became the heart of the moonlight experience. Each one offers something different. The best choice depends on the feeling you want to create. Soft, elegant, romantic, relaxing, or unforgettable. Now, I want to know something. Which one earned a place in your dream moonlight garden? Would you choose powerful fragrance? Soft evening glow? Or would you combine several and create an entire nighttime experience? Share your answer below. And if you already grow one of these plants, tell everyone what it's like after sunset. Your experience may inspire someone else's next garden. If this video helped you imagine a completely different way to enjoy outdoor space, stay with us for the next one. Because beautiful gardens don't end when the sun goes down. Sometimes, that's when they finally begin.